Life has a way of introducing us to pain we did not prepare for, betrayals we did not expect, doors that closed when we thought they would open, people who took advantage of us when all we wanted was to help them. You see, every single person under the sound of my voice knows what it feels like to be hurt. Sometimes the greatest wounds do not come from strangers, they come from those closest to us. Yet the mystery of God is this: the very thing designed to break, you can become the very thing God uses to elevate you. What men meant for evil, God has the ability to turn around for good. Do you understand that? The weapons may have been formed, but they will not prosper. Your pain has a purpose, and your wounds are not wasted. You thought the betrayal disqualified you, but in fact it qualified you for the next season. The rejection you endured is nothing more than divine redirection. God will not allow you to walk through fire without bringing you out purified, stronger, and ready for the platform He prepared. Think for a moment about Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery. They lied on him, abandoned him, stripped him of his dignity, and left him for dead. But in the sovereignty of God, the pit became preparation for the palace. What they did to hurt him was the very thing God used to position him. If Joseph had never been thrown into the pit, he would never have entered Pharaoh's house. If he had never been falsely accused, he would never have met the cupbearer. And if he had never been forgotten, he would not have been remembered at the right time. The same story is being written in your life. You may not see it now, but God specializes in using your scars as the platform for your success. That's why you cannot afford to despise your suffering. You cannot afford to waste your nights of tears. You cannot afford to curse the very season that is shaping your destiny. Every betrayal is a seed. Every disappointment is a setup. Every rejection is God's way of shifting you into divine alignment. The problem is that too many of us interpret pain as punishment, when in fact it is preparation. The cross was the greatest act of cruelty man could commit, yet it became the greatest act of salvation God could perform. What was meant to humiliate Christ became the very platform of His glory. Do you see the pattern? If the Son of God had to endure a cross before wearing a crown, do not be surprised if your greatest blessings are hidden in the very things that wounded you. So don't pray for God to remove the pain prematurely. Pray for Him to reveal the purpose behind it. Don't ask Him only for deliverance, ask Him for discernment. Because when you realize that your enemies are simply instruments in God's hand, you will stop complaining about them and start thanking God for them. They pushed you, but that push was into destiny. They mocked you, but their mockery was free advertisement for what God is doing in your life. They left you, but their departure made space for the right people to arrive. The truth is, some of the greatest breakthroughs in your life will come through the vehicle of betrayal, disappointment, and hurt. Because God is the master of reversal. He takes what was meant to destroy you and makes it the very thing that defines you. He will make your enemies your footstool, not because He hates them, but because He wants to elevate you. So the next time someone tries to sabotage you, smile. The next time they betray you, give thanks. Because whether they know it or not, they are working for you. They are unknowingly participating in the plan of God for your life. Just as Pharaoh's cruelty was the stage for Israel's deliverance, the very thing done against you is going to be the platform for God's blessing over you. When we hear the words, what was meant to harm you, God will use to help you, it is not just a comforting phrase to ease our pain. It is a divine principle that governs the way God operates in the lives of His children. Throughout history, God has revealed His pattern of transforming harm into help, turning setbacks into stepping stones, and using the plots of the enemy as the very foundation for victory. The truth is, the moment you gave your life to God, nothing in your journey could ever again be wasted. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every injustice, God has already factored into His plan. What others intended to harm, you cannot cancel what God has destined for you, and in many cases, it becomes the fuel that propels you toward your destiny. Take a moment and think about the story of Joseph. One of the clearest examples of this principle, his own brothers despised him, hated the favor that was on his life, and conspired to destroy him. Their intention was rooted in jealousy, envy, and malice. They wanted to strip him of his future, erase his dreams, and silence his destiny. Yet it was their betrayal that positioned Joseph exactly where he needed to be. The pit they threw him into became the pathway to the palace. The chains they placed on him became the very route to his crown. What they meant for harm was the tool God used to elevate Joseph to a place of authority that not only saved him, but also the very brothers who betrayed him. This is a picture of how God operates. He takes the very instruments of harm and transforms them into instruments of help. You see, God is sovereign. That means he is not surprised by anything you go through. He does not panic when people betray you, when doors close, or when life turns upside down. Instead, he weaves every thread of your pain into the tapestry of his purpose. When others dig ditches for your destruction, God uses those very ditches as foundations for your construction. The harm they plotted becomes the help you needed to be catapulted into your calling. The weapons formed against you are not ignored by God, but repurposed for your development. This is why Scripture reminds us that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. It does not say some things, it says all things, meaning even the harm that was designed to break you has already been converted into the help that will build you think about the way diamonds are formed. They are created under immense pressure. Gold is purified in fire. Seeds only release life after they are buried in the ground. In the same way, the pressures of life, the heat of trials, and the burial of dreams are often the very environment God uses to birth greatness within you. What feels like harm in the moment is actually the process of divine formation. Without the betrayal, you would not discover resilience. Without the rejection, you would not discover direction. Without the pain, you would not develop the strength required for the platform God has prepared. What seemed like harm was in fact disguised help. This is why you must shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why did they do this to me? Start asking, God, how are you using this to shape me? Because hidden within every wound is a lesson. Buried within every trial is a treasure. God never allows harm without providing help on the other side. The tears you cried are watering the very seeds of your destiny. The nights you spent in confusion are producing clarity for the next chapter of your life. The doors that slammed shut in your face were never designed to keep you out, but to redirect you to the door God had already ordained. What was meant to stop you has only strengthened you, and what was meant to block you has only built you. Even in the greatest act of human history, we see this truth. The cross was designed as an instrument of torture, humiliation, and death. Men meant it to harm, to destroy, to silence. But God used that very cross as the platform for salvation, redemption, and eternal victory. The most devastating harm in human eyes became the greatest help in divine purpose. This is the pattern of God. The things that are orchestrated to bring you down are the very things that will raise you up. The things meant to kill your dream are the very things God will use to resurrect it with power. Your pain is not punishment, it is preparation for purpose. Many times, when life hits hard and the weight of trials presses down on our shoulders, the first question we ask is, what did I do wrong? We interpret pain as a sign of God's displeasure, as though every difficulty is some sort of divine reprimand. But that is not the way the kingdom of God operates. Pain in the hands of God is not a tool of punishment. It is an instrument of preparation. Every struggle, every challenge, every disappointment is shaping you, molding you, and equipping you for the very purpose you were created to fulfill. Without the weight of pain, you would not develop the strength necessary to carry destiny. Without the classroom of suffering, you would not acquire the wisdom required to navigate the platform God is preparing for you. Consider the life of David. Before he was ever anointed king, he was a shepherd boy forgotten in the fields. It was there, in the solitude of the pasture, that he learned to fight lions and bears. Those battles were not punishments. They were preparation. They were teaching him courage, strategy, and faith. So when Goliath stood before Israel, mocking the armies of the living God, David did not see a giant too big to defeat. He saw an opportunity prepared by years of pain, testing, and challenge. What looked like punishment, being overlooked, left out, and sent to the fields, was in fact God's training ground for kingship. Without those years of hidden preparation, David would not have been ready for the throne in your own life. The seasons of hardship often feel unfair. The betrayals cut deeply, the delays test your patience, and the losses weigh heavily on your spirit. Yet, in the wisdom of God, none of these experiences are wasted. Each one is equipping you with something you will need for the future. Patience is forged in waiting. Strength is forged in struggle. Wisdom is forged in failure. Compassion is forged in suffering. Every dimension of your pain has a corresponding purpose it is preparing you for. If you had never been broken, you would not know how to minister to the broken. If you had never been rejected, you would not know how to embrace the rejected. If you had never been wounded, you would not understand how to speak healing into the lives of others. Pain is not meant to disqualify you. It is meant to qualify you. Think also about the process of a seed. A seed must be buried in the darkness of soil before it can produce life. To the seed, the burial feels like punishment. It is covered, pressed down, and hidden from sight. But in reality, that burial is preparation. It is in the dark soil that roots begin to grow, that strength begins to form, that the potential locked inside the seed begins to emerge. Without the burial, the seed could never release its purpose. In the same way, your pain may feel like burial, but God is simply planting you deeper so that your purpose can grow stronger. What feels like the end is simply the beginning of transformation. The cross itself is the ultimate example of this truth. To the disciples, it looked like punishment. Their master was beaten, mocked, and crucified. Darkness covered the land, and all hope seemed lost. Yet, what appeared to be punishment was the greatest preparation for the resurrection. Through suffering came salvation. Through pain came power. Through the wounds of Christ came the healing of nations. This is the way God works. What feels like punishment in the moment is revealed to be preparation. When the fullness of time arrives, this is why perspective matters. When you see pain as punishment, you will resist it, complain about it, and even run from it. But when you see pain as preparation, you will embrace it, learn from it, and grow through it. You will recognize that God is not trying to hurt you. He is trying to build you. He is preparing you for rooms you have not yet entered, for platforms you have not yet stood on, for influence you have not yet carried. The weight of your future requires the strength of preparation, and that strength only comes through the refining process of pain. So when storms come, do not assume you are being punished. When trials arise, do not assume God has abandoned you. Instead, lift your eyes and understand that God is preparing you for something greater. The pain you feel today is building the capacity you will need tomorrow. The struggles you endure today are the very tools that will sharpen you for your assignment. The process may hurt, but it is holy. The pain may sting, but it is shaping you into the person who can carry the vision, walk in the calling, and fulfill the purpose for which you were created. Rejection is divine redirection into your destiny. One of the hardest experiences to endure in life is rejection. Whether it comes from people you trusted, opportunities you were sure about, or doors you expected to open, rejection has a way of piercing the heart and shaking your confidence. It makes you question your worth, your value, and sometimes even your purpose. But what you must understand is that rejection is never the end of the story. In the hands of God, rejection is not a sign that you are forgotten. It is a signal that you are being redirected. Every no you encounter, every closed door you face, every hand that waves you away is a divine compass pointing you toward the destiny God has already prepared for you. Think of the life of Jesus. The very people he came to save were the ones who rejected him. Scripture tells us that he was despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows acquainted with grief. To the natural eye, his rejection looked like failure. But in reality, it was the redirection that fulfilled prophecy and unlocked redemption. If he had been accepted by the religious leaders, if he had been embraced by the crowds, he would not have been crucified. And if he had not been crucified, there would have been no resurrection. What looked like rejection was the redirection that secured salvation for the world. This shows us a powerful truth. Rejection is often the doorway to a greater assignment. In your own journey, every rejection carries hidden guidance. That job you did not get was not rejection. It was redirection to the career that aligns with your calling. That relationship that ended was not rejection. It was redirection away from someone who could not carry the weight of your destiny. That opportunity that slipped through your fingers was not rejection. It was God steering you toward the opportunity he ordained for your life. You may not see it in the moment, but every rejection is an act of divine navigation. It is God saying, this is not your path. I have something better prepared. Rejection is also a test of faith. It forces you to decide whether you will place your trust in people or in God. When others push you away, will you crumble under the weight of their disapproval? Or will you stand in the confidence that God's approval is all that truly matters? Rejection strips away the false security we often build in human acceptance and reminds us that our identity must be anchored in God alone. The opinions of men are unstable, but the purpose of God is unshakable. When he says yes, no rejection can stop you. When he opens a door, no man can shut it. Rejection is simply evidence that God is protecting you from what was never designed to hold you. Consider the story of Joseph again. When he shared his dreams with his brothers, they rejected him. When he tried to do what was right in Potiphar's house, he was falsely accused and rejected. Even in prison, he was forgotten by the cupbearer and left behind. But every rejection was actually redirection. The rejection of his brothers led him to Egypt. The rejection in Potiphar's house led him to the prison where he would meet the cupbearer. The rejection of being forgotten positioned him to be remembered at the exact moment Pharaoh needed his gift. Every no along Joseph's path was guiding him closer to the divine yes that awaited him in the palace. Rejection also develops resilience. It teaches you how to rise again after being knocked down. It strengthens your character and deepens your dependence on God. Without rejection, you would become complacent, relying too heavily on human approval. But rejection drives you back to the presence of God, where you discover that He alone is the source of your affirmation. It is in those lonely moments when others have turned away that you realize you were never truly alone. God was redirecting you into His presence so He could refine you, restore you, and realign you with His plan. Rejection also clears the path for divine connections. Some people must walk out of your life so the right people can walk in. Some doors must close so that the right doors can open. Some opportunities must pass you by so that the right opportunities can find you. Rejection is not subtraction, it is substitution. It is God removing what does not belong so He can replace it with what He designed specifically for you. What you lost was never meant to carry your destiny, but what is coming has been tailored to fit the purpose you were born to fulfill. So instead of viewing rejection as failure, begin to see it as redirection. Every time life says no, heaven is saying yes to something better. Every time someone walks away, God is making room for someone greater. Every time a door closes, it is because there is a door ahead that only you can walk through. Rejection is not the end of your journey. It is a turning point, a divine shift, a redirection that leads you closer to your destiny. The cross you carry becomes the crown you inherit. In every life, there are burdens that feel unbearable, weights that seem too heavy, and seasons that test the very core of your faith. The cross represents struggle, sacrifice, and surrender. It is not glamorous, and it is not easy. It is the symbol of pain that you cannot avoid in trials. You must endure. Yet hidden within the cross is the pathway to the crown. What feels like suffering in the present moment is actually the preparation for glory in the future. Without the cross, there can be no crown. Without the struggle, there can be no strength. Without the process, there can be no promotion. When Jesus carried His cross up the hill of Calvary, it was the ultimate picture of pain. Mocked by crowds, beaten by soldiers, abandoned by friends, and pierced by nails, it appeared to be the ultimate defeat. Yet in the wisdom of God, that very cross was the gateway to eternal victory. The crown of thorns placed upon His head in mockery became the crown of glory He would inherit in triumph. His suffering was not meaningless. It was the very means by which redemption was purchased for the world. The cross He carried became the crown He inherited, and the same principle applies to every child of God who is willing to endure their season of trials. The cross you carry may not be wooden beams on your shoulders, but it is the pain, betrayal, loss, and hardship you face in your journey. It may be the sickness you battle, the rejection you endure, the disappointments that press against your faith, or the responsibilities that stretch you to the limit. At times it feels unfair. At times it feels overwhelming. But every cross has a purpose, and every cross has a crown attached to it. The weight you carry is not in vain. The crown is waiting on the other side of your obedience, your endurance, and your faithfulness. Think of the Apostle Paul. He described his life as one filled with trials, shipwrecks, imprisonments, and beatings. He spoke of a thorn in the flesh that he begged God to remove, yet God responded, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Paul understood that the cross he carried was shaping him for the crown of righteousness that awaited him. He declared with confidence that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed. The cross did not crush him, it crowned him. His endurance through pain became his qualification for eternal reward. Carrying your cross also teaches you submission. A crown without a cross produces pride, but a crown earned through the cross produces humility. It reminds you that promotion comes not from your strength, but from God's grace. The cross breaks you of self-reliance and builds in you a dependence on the one who holds your destiny. When you learn to embrace the cross, you learn to trust that even your pain is purposeful. You begin to see trials not as obstacles, but as opportunities for God's power to be revealed in your life. The cross is also the great equalizer. Everyone must carry one. No one is exempt from struggle. No one escapes hardship. But the difference is how you respond to it. Some despise their cross and try to run from it, while others embrace it and allow God to transform it into glory. The cross you carry is the test that proves your readiness for the crown you are destined to wear. It separates those who are willing to endure from those who give up too soon. It is in carrying your cross that you are refined, purified, and prepared for greater responsibility. Consider also the image of an athlete. The crown of victory only comes after the discipline of training, the strain of competition, and the endurance of exhaustion. In the same way, spiritual crowns are not given to those who avoid the cross, but to those who embrace it with faith. Every tear you shed, every sacrifice you make, every trial you overcome is adding weight to the crown that will one day rest upon your head. The greater the cross, the greater the crown. The heavier the burden, the brighter the glory. The cross you carry becomes the testimony you share. It is the evidence of your journey and the proof of God's faithfulness. When you stand crowned in victory, the very airy scars you carry will speak louder than your words. They will declare that you endured, that you trusted, and that you overcame. Your crown will not be a symbol of you avoided, but of what you survived. It will be a reminder that you were faithful under pressure, steadfast in trials, and unshaken in storms. The cross you carried became the crown you inherited. Your enemies are unknowingly instruments in God's plan for your elevation. Often when people rise against you, when they conspire against your name, or when they attempt to block your progress, the natural response is anger, bitterness, or discouragement. But the truth is, nothing and no one can move against you without God allowing it to serve a greater purpose. Those who try to harm you are not outside of God's control. They are part of the very blueprint He is using to lift you higher. What they think is opposition is actually cooperation with God's plan. What they intend as destruction, God repurposes as construction. The very enemies who push against you are the ones pushing you into destiny. The story of Joseph provides a perfect example. His brothers despised him, plotted against him, and sold him into slavery. To Joseph, it must have felt like betrayal of the highest order. Yet, when he rose to power and was able to look back, he declared to them, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." In other words, you thought you were working against me, but you were actually working for me. You thought you were cutting off my future, but you were transporting me to the place where my future was waiting. Without the betrayal of his brothers, Joseph would have never reached Egypt. Without reaching Egypt, he would have never entered Pharaoh's palace. Without Pharaoh's palace, he would have never saved nations from famine. His enemies were unwilling servants of his elevation. The same principle applies to your life. Every person who has lied on you, rejected you, or plotted against you has unknowingly been participating in God's plan. They do not have the power to cancel your destiny, but they often become the ones to carry you toward it. Their jealousy may wound you, their words may sting, their actions may delay your comfort, but none of it can derail God's purpose. Instead, they sharpen you, stretch you, and position you. Sometimes without the resistance of enemies, you would never discover the strength God has placed inside you. Just as weights in a gym build muscles through resistance, enemies build spiritual resilience by pressing against you. They are the very resistance that develops your capacity for elevation. Even the cross of Christ was carried on the shoulders of enemies. Judas betrayed him, the priests accused him, Pilate condemned him, and soldiers crucified him. Every one of them thought they were destroying him, yet they were fulfilling prophecy. They were instruments in the hands of God to bring about the greatest victory in history. Without Judas, there would have been no arrest. Without Pilate, there would have been no trial. Without the soldiers, there would have been no crucifixion. And without the crucifixion, there would have been no resurrection. The enemies of Christ unknowingly elevated him to the throne of eternal glory. This is why you must not waste time fighting battles that God has already ordained to use for your good. Instead of cursing your enemies, start blessing God for them. Instead of wasting energy in revenge, start thanking God for the redirection they bring. They are confirming the anointing on your life. No one fights against someone who is not a threat. The fact that you have enemies is proof that you carry destiny. Their opposition is the evidence of your importance. If you were insignificant, no one would bother resisting you. Their attacks are signs that heaven has marked you for elevation. Your enemies also serve as divine announcers. When they speak against you, they spread your name further than you could have on your own. When they try to discredit you, they end up advertising you. Their attempts to humiliate you become free publicity for the purpose God placed in your life. The more they oppose you, the louder your testimony will sound when God elevates you in front of them. He prepares a table before you in the presence of your enemies, not to embarrass them, but to show that He alone is the author of your story. Your elevation is not for private celebration, it is for public demonstration, and your enemies are invited as witnesses. Your enemies also create opportunities you would not create for yourself. Their rejection pushes you into new environments. Their betrayal pushes you into new levels of dependence on God. Their opposition pushes you into new strategies, new prayers, and new perspectives. What you would have never left on your own, their hostility forces you to walk away from. And what you would have never reached on your own, their resistance pushes you toward. They think they are breaking you, but they are building you. They think they are burying you, but they are planting you. They think they are ending you, but they are elevating you. When you finally stand in the place God has prepared, you will look back and realize that your enemies were never truly in control. They were instruments, tools in the hands of a sovereign God. They unknowingly carried you, shaped you, and positioned you for the elevation that only God could give. The crown you wear, the platform you stand on, the influence you carry will all be traced back to the resistance they provided. Your enemies are not stumbling blocks, they are stepping stones. They are not barriers, they are builders. They are not the end of your story, they are the proof that your story is divinely orchestrated